On this episode of Locked On Angels, we're recapping the weekend games, which included a Jo Adell grand slam. Mike Trout got on base multiple times. Yoan Moncada walked a whole lot of times. And then I sent an angry text to John about A's pitching. We'll talk about that. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John. And this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Don't throw balls at Mike Trout's head, please. Don't do that. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, what are you waiting for? We're trying to get to 10K by opening day, and you can help us out by hitting that subscribe button on YouTube and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube and leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just download their app or visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
It's a happy Monday here at Locked On Angels. We're hosting Locked On Angels in our fourth season, Michael. We're here 5 days a week, talking Angels baseball Monday through Friday, every single weekday. And on today's show, we're recapping the weekend. It was a jam-packed weekend of 4 games across 3 days. So we're going to get into all of that, talk about the highlights, the lowlights, and then in particular, in this first segment, there was some excitement around Jo Adell and the grand slam he hit, and then some of the changes that he's made at the plate. But Mike, let's start with Friday against the White Sox.
Yeah, Jorge Soler had a pretty good game, John. Hit his second home run. It was to deep center field on an 0-2 count, which was great. He brought his bat to spring training. I love that. He also lined a double off the fence and left. And then his third trip, he lined out to the left fielder. After the game, John, after Friday's game, Soler was 5 for 10 this spring. And it's nice to have him hitting home runs instead of, Griffin Canning giving up home runs, right?
Yes. I feel strange about why that was such a controversial trade. It made so much sense to me. It was like Canning's in his last year of team control. $13 million for a hitter of Soler's caliber is kind of under the going rate. I mean, what did Michael Conforto get? Like 15, 16, 18, something crazy. And so to have Soler doing what he's doing and hitting home runs in the first inning instead of Griffin Canning giving up home runs in the first inning. Yeah. I think that it made so much sense. They needed power. They added power. And now you have somebody else instead of Griffin Canning in this rotation. I love it. Happy with it. And speaking of rotation, Reid Detmers started in this game, pitched 3 scoreless innings, gave up a single and walked 2, but he also struck out 2. He did have a few at-bats where he would go up 0-2, then nibble and end up at 3-2. And Mike, isn't that just kind of the narrative with Reid Detmers? Yeah. Again, we talk about the stuff is there, the quality of his pitches is there, but it's the mental game. And that's why, he can get 12 strikeouts in 6 innings and then have, 180 pitches by the end of the 6th. And that's an exaggeration, but that's what we see from Reid Detmers. I want to see more efficient Reid Detmers. Going 0-2 to 3-2 seems to be the issue, right?
Yeah, he's somebody that has such a great repertoire of pitches. He's somebody that could be so dominant, but he just certainly hasn't been able to figure out how to have maybe one waste pitch and then come back and get the hitter. We're going to talk about Kyle Hendricks and his start from Saturday. John, it's night and day watching Kyle Hendricks versus Reid Detmers. Kyle was up 0-2, and then he went after the batter. Instead of having a waste pitch, why don't you just go after the batter? Right. Why don't you just strike him out or get him to pop up? It just feels like Detmers he's wasting a lot of his bullets when he's messing around. And this was a better start than his first start, John. Right. He's allowed just 1 run in 5 innings in 2 of his starts. And he did say something interesting after the game. I'd love your thoughts on this. He said he felt more comfortable out of the stretch than the windup. And he said out of the stretch, he actually feels like his fastball and his command of his fastball is so much better. And so I wonder if that might be something that we'll see a bit more often, because gosh, why not just pitch out of the stretch if that's where you feel more comfortable and that's where you're actually hitting your spots?
Or your favorite brother could do a little research into this notion that he does better out of the stretch. Are you telling me I get to buckle up, nerds? Is that what you're saying?
Dave's on the show? I
didn't. All right, you're fired. Get out of here.
Now, Detmers did talk about this start. He said, all of my pitches, they feel really good right now. I'm not too worried if something's a little bit off. He said the slider feels really good, and that's probably the best of all of them so far this spring. It was, again, a better start for Reid Detmers, and the Halos did win that first game against the lowly former Angels White Sox.
Yeah, man, I think I texted you and said, I am so glad that Trout caught that Matt Thaiss hit to right field that could have been a double, because then people would have been like, Matt Thaiss is hitting doubles, and then now he's not our back. Even though d'Arnaud hit a double in the first inning, people still would have been upset. Matt Thaiss looks great out there.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's the nature of our fandom, right?
Yeah.
The second game of the day was against the Dodgers. And for Angels highlights, it was highlighted by a Jo Adell grand slam. He was 0 for 9 up until that point, and the homer was to left center. It was great because I was on my way to hosting karaoke at the place I do it on Fridays, and a buddy who works there sent me the still of Ohtani hitting his solo home run. And so once I parked and saw the picture, I sent him the still of Jo Adell hitting his grand slam and sent it back to him. And then I said, you know what? You have Shohei. I'll raise you a Johei. How about that? So Jeff Fletcher had some interesting notes about Jo Adell in a recent article for the OC Register. Adell hit that grand slam using the leg kick that he actually got rid of in the last 2 months of the season. Adell said he's going to be using it some of the time. He made the change with the blessing of Johnny Washington and Tim Laker. Here's what Adell had to say. He said, part of hitting is decision-making, but the other part is how athletic you're going to be in the box. Whatever you've got to do to bring out the athlete when you're playing, when you're in the box, that's what's going to give you the best chance. He said nothing is set in stone, and he may revert to the toe tap occasionally. But here's why that leg kick is an important part of the conversation, Mike. When he was hitting 192 with a 648 OPS in late July last season, he was using a swing where he lifted his front foot a few inches as he got ready to swing, but then he stopped doing it July 30th, kept his toe on the ground, lifting his heel, and then he hit a homer on July 30th when he made that change. So he kept that toe tap for the rest of the season. Over the final 34 games, he hit 248 with 5 homers and a 771 OPS. Obviously, he got hurt, so he had to cut his season a little bit short. So to me, toe tap, leg kick, or trust the player, and has Adell earned that trust?
He's got to be somebody who is going to stick with what works. He's got to be consistent at the plate. I don't think that Jo Adell is in the frame of mind or in the position to be adjusting all of the time. You know what? I'm going to do a leg kick right now, and I'm going to do, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like he doesn't have that story behind him, the credibility behind him. He's not Mike Trout, right? And so I think that Jo Adell's got to go with what works. And I'm not super comfortable with, well, when it feels right or when it looks good or with the pitch and those types of things, because he hasn't proven that he can be a consistent player over a long period of time. And what worked was the little toe, heel off the ground kind of move. You batted 248 and you had a 771 OPS in the final 34 games. So I think he's got to stick with what has worked last year. I know that he's been given permission by Tim Laker and he's been given permission by the Angels coaches. I just think that Jo Adell needs to continue to earn trust instead of being somebody that has the opportunity to do whatever he wants to do at the plate, because it still feels like he's an incomplete player.
Yeah. And the biggest thing I've been paying attention to is the chase rate, the strikeouts, and it's hard to keep track of everything because, a strikeout in the books is a strikeout, but there's, at least from what I can remember, it doesn't seem like your typical chasing out of the zone Jo Adell strikeout. It's a strike looking, right? Yeah. It's a really good pitch that he took for a strike that could have easily been a ball, that sort of thing. So that to me is kind of the big crutch for Jo Adell is I just want to see a reduction in the strikeouts. I want to see him not chasing out of the zone. I want him to make the pitchers pitch to him in the zone. I know he went 0 for 9 and we're all waiting for a hit, but everything that he put in play was hard hit. It was right at somebody. It was stuff like that. So I think that there is a lot more to unlock when it comes to him, but I'm with you. It's you, you got to trust your coaches. You got to trust the moment and to be making adjustments on the fly. That makes me a little bit nervous. Yusei Kikuchi started the game against the Dodgers, gave up 2 runs and 2 2/3 of an inning in his first start in the spring. In the first inning, I mentioned he gave up that leadoff homer to Shohei, and he said, I kind of fell behind on him and threw the fastball down the middle. A player of his caliber, you can't get away with that. Some good recognition because, he did fall behind. And as I was watching it, I was like, I know where this is going. And so he did give him another run in the first, was pulled with 2 outs when he got to 26 pitches, but he did come back to the mound, retired all 6 hitters, including Ohtani in the next 2 innings with 21 pitches. On that start, Kikuchi said, all in all, I think it went well that day. So that was some great news. More great news was Chase Silseth, right, Mike?
Yeah, he pitched in this one, gave up 1 run and 2 2/3 innings. Johnny struck out 6, and 3 of his 6 strikeouts were against the Dodgers starters. It included Shohei Ohtani. John, I thought this stat was interesting. He threw 24 splitters among the 47 pitches that he threw, and it was a much higher percentage than usual. And he got the Dodgers to swing on 6 of their 7 swings on that pitch, and got to have them miss. And so Locked On Hall of Famer Brent McGuire actually tweeted about that. He said Chase Silseth's splitter looked nasty, producing strikeouts to Will Smith, Hae-Sung Kim, Michael Conforto, and Alex Friedland. And he said that pitch was his best offering in 2023, 34.5% whiff rate with a 190 expected WOBA. And he threw it really well. And then Brent added that according to StatCast, the splitter, which again, 6 of 7 swings, whiffs on 6 of 7 swings, had 8 inches of horizontal break in the game that Chase Silseth was in, compared to, get this, John, 2.9 inches in a limited sample size last year and 5.3 inches in 2023, which means that there is some nastiness that Chase Silseth has figured out with that splitter, at least in this game against the Dodgers.
Yeah, there's some movement there, some really good stuff there. You got to take the weather into consideration, considering the time of day. I know it was an evening game, but, out there in Arizona, it's pretty warm and that sort of thing. But that's a really good sign for Chase Silseth if he's getting that kind of movement on his splitter, because again, a splitter is, the bread and butter of a splitter is vertical. Yeah. And so if you're getting some side to side, from the pitcher to the plate, and that thing is tailing down, that's going to look really good for Chase Silseth in this season. We'll see where he ends up, whether that's part of the 26-man or as a starter in AAA. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch as well. Finally, Mike, Yoan Moncada drew 3 walks in the game. He's had 5 walks in 7 plate appearances this spring up to that point. So, man, great to see that. You love guys getting on base, and that's a talking point that we discussed when he got signed, was really, really strong walk rate, even in the, the hurt years and whatnot. And so he's just got a great eye at the plate. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, Mike sent me an angry text about Saturday's game. He felt what a lot of Halo fans felt, and we'll share what that was all about, and we'll get into that coming right up.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get in on all of the NBA action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You can place live bets throughout the game, even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback. And in NBA, it never seems like a lead is safe. You can stay in on all of the action with FanDuel. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. So maybe you're backing your favorite team for a late-game rally, or you're picking a player for a clutch 3 late in the game. FanDuel's got you covered. Plus, the app's super easy to use. I can use it, so I know that you can. And when you win, you get paid instantly. And right now, new customers to FanDuel can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. And you can make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. We're continuing our conversation about the jam-packed weekend the Halos had down in Arizona, including Saturday's game against the Athletics. No name Athletics, right?
Yeah.
No city name, I should say. They got some good players on that team. And I felt that way last year, even when everybody wrote them off. They're going to be last place. I was like, I don't know. They looked pretty good in spring training against us. And so that was certainly the case last year. But man, those A's pitchers were not only lacking in control and command, they were out of control, right, Mike?
Right. Yeah. They hit 3 batters in this game, including Mike Trout in the earpiece. Lugo and Newman were hit as well. Lugo got hit in the hand, Matthew Lugo, and then Newman got hit in the elbow. So then I texted John and I said, get our freaking starters out of this game. The A's can't pitch. I was so mad. And then you tweeted that. You tweeted that, I think, from Locked On Angels. I was so frustrated because it was like, can we have at least some semblance of control? Can we figure out how to throw the ball at least near the strike zone?
Because can we not hurt our starters, please? Because we need, we're talking about Mike Trout's got to be healthy. Well, all the injuries he's had have been not self-inflicted, but just stuff that's happened to him.
Right.
Not getting hit in the head, and Taylor Ward's been hit in the face. Like, knock it off. Good grief. There was somebody, Rylan Scott, tweeted at us and said, I have the blessing of sitting right behind Wash today. And my favorite quote was, get him out of here if he doesn't know how to throw. I don't want anyone getting hurt.
Yes. Yeah. I feel that, Wash. I'm glad that he's yelling that out, because the first few pitches to Mike Trout were up and in. And it wasn't like he was trying to go up and in. It was because he lacked control. And then when he hit him in the earpiece, it was just like, okay, like, I don't want Trout in this game if this guy can't throw.
No.
Because you're right. This would have been a terrible injury to Mike Trout that, again, he didn't cause. John, he had 3 plate appearances in this game, was hit, and he walked twice. One of the walks was a bases loaded walk, and he got an RBI. His approach so far this spring has been one of patience at the plate. And if the lineup can actually follow up Mike Trout walking, this could be a pretty dangerous lineup. And that's always been the issue over the last few years. You and I have talked about it on the show. Mike, this isn't a time to take a walk. Like, we need you to swing the bat because you've got some doofus behind you that isn't going to be able to hit, right? And so that's the thing about Mike Trout, is that he has such a great eye at the plate, but you also need to protect him because he's going to draw a walk, and the guy behind him has to be dangerous, John. And so it looks like Mike's got the eye back. I mean, 5 walks and 11 plate appearances so far this spring. I wonder, with the lineup conversations, Taylor Ward obviously sounds like he's going to lead off. I wonder who's hitting behind Mike Trout. And do you think it should be somebody like a Jorge Soler, just to be a threat, just to be dangerous?
Yeah, it's funny because I kind of wish they weren't going with Taylor Ward leading off, because you and I both like him in that cleanup spot. Not only has he had a lot of success there, Mike, I took a look at it the other day, and every day in our comments on YouTube mentioned, hey, you got to have a threat behind Trout. And I said, well, Ward kind of can be that threat, because if you go and look at his success on pitches in the strike zone that he puts in play, I mean, other than the, high and away part of the zone, it's bright red. It's, high 200s, low 300s, 350, like batting averages there. And so to me, when Taylor Ward gets a pitch in the zone, he does damage. Now, I need to go look at what Soler has done in the past. We know that he has some swing and miss in his game. And so I think that I will say this, it will be a conversation at some point this season where, does Trout hit second and Ward is third, or is Trout at third and Ward is fourth? Obviously Ward's starting the season leading off, but we also know that Soler has been a pretty decent leadoff guy. Heck, we even made the case that the best kind of lineup is Trout at number 1 and in the quote unquote number 10 spot. So there's a lot of ways that this can go. I am fine with the way that it's shaping up with Taylor Ward and then somebody at 2, Trout at 3, Soler at 4. Makes sense. And, I said it the other day, Soler, being a cleanup hitter, actually cleaned up the bases with that three run home run that he had. So there's a lot of promise there. I don't think you can go wrong. And when things, how baseball is, like when things start to kind of tail off a little bit, shake up the lineup a little bit, shake up that order. So I don't think we'll be done with this conversation. I think we'll be having it throughout the season.
Jo Adell reached on an infield single, and they also had a sacrifice fly in this game. He was 2 for 5 in the last 2 games after starting 0 for 9, so that was a good sign. And the Angels in this game drew 8 walks and had just 2 hits and had 2 batters that were hit. And they ended up winning this game. Could have been a much larger victory. It was 5-0. They did have opportunities, 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position. They got to clean that up, right? They got to clean that up.
There's nothing in the zone. They couldn't swing at anything.
That's true.
I don't blame them. Like
what I did like, though, is they did have 2 sacrifices in this game, John, that did bring runs in to score. So they found ways to score. So that, I know the runners in scoring position has always been an issue with the Halos. However, they were able to work around that. They were able to score some runs when they weren't able to get some hits because there wasn't anything in the zone.
Saying 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position, I know that's what the line score says, but you have to remember, like, if you take a walk, then your at bat doesn't count, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it counts, but it doesn't count as an at bat. And so, yes, they had opportunities. 0 for 7. That's putting the ball in play or getting a strikeout or something like that, right? But as you mentioned earlier, they're walking with the bases loaded. They're taking pitches and getting hit and stuff. So I just felt like there wasn't anything good to swing at in this game. And so conversely, on the other side, Kyle Hendricks was clean and concise. 3 innings pitched, 2 hits, and 3 strikeouts again, Mike. That guy who doesn't throw very many strikeouts had another game of 3 Ks, lots of first pitch strikes. When he was ahead in the count, he put the batters away. 5 innings pitched, 6 Ks for Hendricks across these 2 starts so far. And then it got even more exciting because we saw the back end of the bullpen that we know will be there, and then potentially a third guy who might make his way onto the team. I'm just saying, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, Kenley Jansen first got into this game, and it was his first appearance this spring. 1 inning, 1 hit, 1 K. Nice shot, Jansen. He felt great to be out there is what he said. And then Ben Joyce, John, followed. Same kind of line. 1 inning, 1 K, 1 hit. Joyce said he threw a mostly four-seam fastballs and threw in a couple of sinkers and sliders in there. He said it was a mix of a little bit of everything, but his main goal was to establish the four-seam. And then the guy you were talking about that, gosh, has just been fun to watch.
Yeah.
And that's Ryan Jansen, his second appearance, 3 total innings so far, 1 K. John, his short, quick delivery.
That arm is so weird.
And his the best way I can describe it is he's like the nerd that you see when you're in high school, kind of just does the same routine every single day, walks down the hallway real fast, right? And maybe doesn't talk to anybody. Did you see every time he got an out, he marched around the mound and then he would find a spot and then march up, and then he would immediately start throwing, and like his rhythm wasn't messed up, and maybe nerd's not the right word, but he's got this really kind of strange routine and kind of just was so in the zone when he was pitching. Baby. I like that a lot about him, and somebody that has impressed me so far this spring.
Yeah, absolutely. There's talk about like, hey, how quickly is he going to move through the Angels minor league system? And the fact is with relievers, you can be a little bit more, liberal with your moving those kinds of arms up through the system, because at the end of the day, what they have to offer is, 1, 2, 3 different kinds of pitches. And if they're taking on major league talent and performing very well, that's the other thing is, perhaps we'll see Ryan Jansen and the level of competition kind of increase over spring as they give him more looks. So that's an interesting part of the conversation as well. But man, talk about feeling good about the back of the bullpen with Kenley Jansen doing his thing. I forgot how long his windup is. I haven't seen him pitch in particular in a while. And then Ben Joyce, I love just him being transparent of, I'm just trying to get a feel for the fastball, just trying to make sure that that's comfortable. And then everything kind of goes from there, branches off from that fastball. So these are the things these guys are working out. Man, I can't believe it's only been a week of spring training games, and it feels like it's been a month. But the fact is we had a lot of spring training baseball ahead of us. So for these guys to start out the way that they have, I think is a really good thing. And I'll be interested to see how things play out for guys like Jansen and Joyce and even Ryan Jansen. Hey, we got 3 J's there. There we go. Jansen, Joyce, and Johnson. I like that. Now we have to put them in the back of the bullpen.
Before Sunday's game, the Angels optioned Victor Medeiros, right-handed pitcher, to AAA Salt Lake, and then they reassigned Chris Cortez, Austin Gordon, Angel Felipe, Dario Lavarde, and Alberto Rios to minor league camp, which those are just normal moves and expected moves by the Halos.
Yeah, Chris Cortez never really put it all together. I think he only had about two outings in spring. And you could tell he's young, he's new. We talked about his first outing, first time in an Angels uniform going out there, and then kind of more of the same, I think, the second time that he came out. So to see Chris Cortez be reassigned, just going to take some time, some development. And I'm bringing him up because he was the second round pick last season in the draft. So, so to see these guys get reassigned, great. They'll work their way through the system. Victor Medeiros, Mike, they keep using him. I know that in spring you give your starters like some relief outings just because it's, 1 to 2 innings, but they keep using the poor guy in relief. And I just don't think that that's his future. He has had so much more success as a starter. And so maybe in AAA, he gets into that rotation and kind of opens up some eyes there. But Sunday, the Angels were taking on the Giants. Jose Soriano got the start in this one. Kind of a tough start compared to the first one. 1 1/3 innings pitched, 2 hits, 3 earned runs. There were 3 strikeouts and a walk. And so, just kind of labored through things. He had to come out of the first inning and then come back in the second, which, seemed like it was a lot more smooth sailing at that point.
Yeah, over 40 pitches. And so that's why they were really monitoring him. John, he did this last year. He'd have a really good start, and then he wouldn't be great in his next start. Yeah. And so he's got to be more consistent from start to start. Now, we don't know specifically what he was working on, but according to Ron Washington, he said Soriano just didn't have it today. And so I don't know what he was working on specifically when he went out there, but anything that he was throwing, he was just struggling with hitting the strike zone. Yeah. And he was also struggling with getting too much of the strike zone with meatball pitches. And that's why they were being able to hit him and hammer him. And then he was really just laboring. He didn't look smooth and he didn't look clean like he did in his first spring start.
Yeah. It's with the sinker, you got to have a good feel for that sinker. And if your intention is to throw it down in the zone over the plate, get some ground balls or even some swings and misses, because he has that power sinker. So guys can be behind on it and miss it. But there were just too many things up in the zone. And when you don't have a feel for your sinker, that's where that ball is going to end up, is just right there on a tee in the middle of a strike zone for a guy.
Yeah. John, Christian Moore drove in his first run in the game yesterday. Overall stats in the spring, 16 at-bats, .313 batting average, 1 RBI, a .702 OPS. It's early, been a week. What do you make of just those initial stats?
Yeah, I mean, so far so good. I really like what I've seen from him at the plate. More often than not, competitive at bats. I think rather than diving into, hey, these numbers are pretty good in this first week of spring training, I think about how many opportunities he's had so far, right, Mike? Like it seems like he's in there one way or another, whether it's starting a game or coming in the second half of a game. So that just indicates to me that they are very, very interested to see how he can handle major league caliber pitching at the dish.
Yeah.
And that also tells me they're probably in a hurry to get him up to the major leagues. But I will say, I like how many opportunities they're giving him, because they seem to be seeking an answer rather than trying to make it the answer. Does that make sense? Let's see how things play out with Christian Moore. Let's give him plenty of opportunities to, demonstrate what he has, versus, oh, we got to get this guy up. He's got to be in every game. He's got to get up. I feel like they're leaning toward the former, which is let's get our answers about Christian Moore and see if there's enough there to have him start in the majors. But also let's get enough answers about him to recognize that, oh, maybe he needs a little bit more time. So to me, more than the stats, I love it. 313 average and a 702 OPS so far in 16 at bats. Small sample size for, major league quality at bats. But at the same time, I am just happy at the opportunities that he seems to be getting.
John Soler had 2 hits in this game, now .538 this spring. And Logan O'Hoppe had 2 hits, now .556 this spring. Johnny, Logan O'Hoppe actually wanted to be on the broadcast on Saturday, wanted to talk about the team and everything that's happening. And him and Zach Neto actually fought over that, according to what Terry Smith said.
And they both got on.
So they both got on, which was great. And I loved it. Yeah. I loved what they had to say. I love the inside scoop that they wanted to give. And I love that leadership, John. This feels so different than what we've had in years past, where it's kind of a nonchalant conversation with just somebody in the dugout. And hear me. I think all the players are important. But when you hear from Neto and when you hear from O'Hoppe, it's like hearing from Mike Trout, right? Like it's hearing from the guys who have the pulse of this team, who are the heartbeat of this team, and they want to communicate what this team is doing just in a week and how much fun it's been to be at spring training. I love that. More of that, please, because we don't often hear from the Angels, or it feels a bit kind of, it's filtered and they try to, make it sound good. What I loved from Neto and what I loved from O'Hoppe was just dudes who play baseball who are like, yeah, man, it's fun. We're having a good time. These guys are exciting. We're excited for this season. And I love the hope that's in their voice and what they believe this team can do.
Yeah. I mean, you got to look to guys like that for, the pulse of this team. Before we wrap up, I know that the pitching was not phenomenal the rest of the way. It seemed like an opportunity where they were kind of running in the guys who I don't think are necessarily going to make the team. You look at somebody like Jose Fermin, who's done pretty well so far in spring, struggled yesterday. Somebody you could go to, I don't know, your third, fourth string backup from the minor leagues, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sean Anderson, who again was somebody I don't think you or I realized got a minor league deal.
Yeah.
So we saw him, and he pitched in this game, 2 innings pitched, 1 hit, 1 run, struck out 6 across those 2 innings. So there you go. He did it all himself in those 2 innings. So that's the balance here. Like, you and I are really wanting to sink our teeth, and so are our everydayers, into, hey, what are our everyday starters doing? What are the potential like borderline guys like Christian Moore doing? And then sometimes you got to get a look at somebody like a Sean Anderson or a Jose Fermin, just so that you know what you have waiting in the wings. So all in all, like I kept saying, a jam-packed weekend, some highlights, some lowlights, but after a week of spring training, it's good to see that. I'll say this. It's good to see that everybody who was signed to do what they were supposed to do is doing what they're supposed to do. That's a roundabout way of saying Soler is my DH.
Yeah.
Kenley Jansen is my closer, right? That's what I'm trying to get at. So it seems like everybody is stepping up into the roles that they were signed for this offseason. And I think that's a really good start to spring training.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB with our friends. Solely going to bring you a blend of humor and baseball, keep you up to date on every rumor and story throughout the season. You can find his show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, get in the comments section. We'd love to hear from you. And we always do our best to get back to everybody. Hey, Mike, what do we have on deck for Tuesday's show?
Sam Blum spoke with Tony Clark, who's the head of the Players Union. And they mentioned the Halos, and they talked about Artie, and what Tony had to say was what many fans have been saying about Artie. So we're going to share what he said, and then we're going to talk about why it matters tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that conversation. We'll also talk about the game as well. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Tuesday.
Repping the Tyler Skaggs gear. Appreciate his family sending that to us.
Heck yeah.